Recently, BMW product planners had a few birds to kill. First off, they needed a new entry-level model, something to welcome people into the BMW brand. Then they wanted to spread their Grand Coupe, four-door coupe styling to more segments. And finally, they needed to update their 2 Series. And so with the introduction of the 2020 BMW 2 Series Grand Coupe, they have that one stone to kill all those birds. That's a weird expression, isn't it? So a couple things to start us out. We have the M235i model here. There is an entry-level for the entry-level 228i. Both have the xDrive all-wheel drive system as standard, so you're all going to see the xDrive branding on the back of both the M235i and 28i. But here is the 235i, so there are going to be some styling differences as we go around the car. But I want to talk about the design sort of in large part first. The entry-level model, its purpose is to bring people into the brand and most importantly to tell people that you are driving a BMW. I don't particularly find this design language to scream BMW, as I will show you as we go around. So up here at the front, yes, there are certain giveaways like the kidney grille finished in this kind of brushed metallic, almost bronze, almost gold surfacing that goes around the kidney grille and finishes these little notches within the grille itself. That looks identifiable. Moving to the corners of the face, we see standard LED headlights, and this one has the optional fully adaptive LED headlights. As we go down, we have real functional venting down here with these large air intakes, and then you have more intakes within the air dam portion of the lower grille. So certainly flashy, but BMW, I don't know. Let's go to the side. Optional 19-inch alloy wheels, 18-inch alloy wheels are standard, as are these M Sport brakes in blue. Moving back, we see the same metal surfacing for these door mirrors, black window trim. There are black accents throughout. We saw some in the front. This black window trim goes all the way around. And then I just have to pause at the profile because this is the real ambiguous part of the 2 Series Grand Coupe for me. This profile could be any automaker's car. I think it incorporates elements, yes, from many automakers, and therefore I don't think they're copying anyone. But what is it? What is this profile? It doesn't say BMW at all to me. And from a BMW fan like myself, that bothers me. LED wraparound taillights, and then we come at the back and it's sort of modern BMW design, especially with some influence from their X coupe vehicles. So like the X4 and X6, I'm seeing a lot of that in this back end, certainly with how tall of a rear area it is. So we have a trunk mounted spoiler for the M235i, we have xDrive badging and M235i badging, and then down here below we have a black diffuser with integrated exhaust ports. Under the hood of the 2 Series Grand Coupe, you will find just one powertrain in 2 different flavors. For the 228i, you get 228 horsepower. But if you go up to this M235i, that bumps all the way up to 301 horsepower and 332 pound-feet of torque. Both powertrain flavors are paired with an 8-speed automatic gearbox and standard all-wheel drive. 0 to 60 for this M235i is 4.6 seconds. Top speed is 155 miles an hour. Both cars get 23 mpg city, but the M235i gets 32 highway, and the base 228i gets 33 highway. So the combined figures vary just slightly. 26 combined for this M235i, 27 combined for the 228. But I think that's pretty impressive. With all this extra power, you only lose 1 mpg. Now that we're inside the 2 Series Grand Coupe, I feel a little more comfortable because this is familiar BMW interior treatments. We've got a sculpted dashboard with a lot of different angles and different textures that look really good and feel good as well. We have dual zone climate control as standard. This M Sport steering wheel is part of this M235i package with the big paddles on the back. We have a digital instrument cluster that is also standard. This one has the Live Cockpit Pro as part of the convenience package for a couple $1,000s. This really doesn't have that many options on this model. And it adds navigation to your information within that display. You also have an 8-inch infotainment with BMW's iDrive, latest version of the iDrive system, which is really very good. It may not be flashy like Mercedes-Benz's MBUX, but it's very user-friendly, really crisp graphics, so easy to work your way through the infotainment, and you can use touch or you can use the iDrive controller down here and this host of buttons. One thing to note about these buttons that I really like is that they aren't actual button slots. They're just press points within this pad, so you won't have dirt and grime getting in between the slots of the buttons. It's just a flat surface. And then you also have your gear selector, which is kind of small on this one, and your sport, comfort, and eco mode drive settings over here. But that's it for your textured surfaces. And then you have this piano black surround. Looks good now. We know in a month or two this is going to get scratched, and every day it's going to be smudgy. So right now while clean it looks good, that won't last very long. You have a couple cup holders, a USB port, but then you have everything else as USB-C ports. So in here we have one USB port in this kind of small center console area, and then we have two USB-C ports back here along with rear air vents. I like that. And this looks like a spot for your smartphone to charge it, but as standard, it's just a holder. So you press your smartphone in there and it locks it into place, but you have to pay for optional wireless smartphone charging. And no moonroof. On this model, you can add it, but again, that's an additional fee. Your options list can get expensive and detailed very quickly. We do have the red Dakota leather. They call it red Dakota leather. I think it looks more orangish, or fire red, or fire orange. Wouldn't call it straight up red, but the seat designs are very good, and these are the M Sport seats. They are optional, and they hold you very well in place. I'm comfortable. The M Sport steering wheel feels great in the hands. This is a good position. Also, as part of that premium package is a head-up display, so you really have a good suite of features here in a well put together, high quality material cabin. Now, as an entry-level model, I'm not expecting a whole lot from these rear seats, but at 6 feet tall, I'm really finding not much room, especially in terms of headroom. My head is on this roof, and I can't actually put it back unless I move my knees outside of the seat, which they were already pressed into the seat. If I do this and sit somewhat awkwardly, then I can kind of get my head back, but it's still not comfortable back here for full-size adults. Thankfully, there's a decent trunk. 15.1 cubic feet of space is better than both the CLA and the A3. So to recap, on the outside it doesn't really look like a BMW, on the inside it does, but everything hinges on whether it feels like a BMW. Does the driving experience communicate that you are driving a German performance sedan? And so far, I'm getting the message. This M235i is pretty fun to drive, and in sport mode especially, where it adds some heft to the steering and you get a little more exhaust note, some of which is piped in through the speakers, and the shifts are quicker. I do feel like I'm driving that BMW that I've always loved. Now, some of the things that make it feel so good to drive are the M Performance goodies. So we've got an M Sport suspension, those M Sport brakes, and M Sport steering dynamics. All those add up to a pretty decent corner carver and just an enjoyable daily driver. So you don't have to drive it aggressively every day to really appreciate what you have. You can leave it in comfort and just dip into it when you need it. There's going to be a little more delay in the throttle response, and the steering won't have quite the heft, but the braking feel, that's going to be the same, and those brakes are good. Let's come to a full stop here. Really good. I mean, pulls the car down with authority, and the brake pedal feel, most importantly, is excellent. It's very clear that the German engineering is alive and well within BMW, and especially within their M Performance division. No, this is not a full-on M car, but M does have a hand in developing the M Performance parts that do adorn this M Sport vehicle. And I do enjoy that the ride quality isn't so harsh when you are not trying to attack a canyon. So I'm going to go over a couple bumps here. And yes, I can feel them. The sportiness of the chassis is there and the suspension tuning, but it is not punishing. This is not something I couldn't live with every day to drive. And despite it being a coupe styled vehicle, the visibility isn't really diminished at all. There's a little bit of a blind spot in that seat pillar, but really not bad because they have that additional window for the rear cabin. And thankfully, you have all of the active safety features that you could ever want, some of which are optional, most of which are standard. You have blind spot monitoring is standard, automatic emergency braking, lane departure warning, your park distance control is there, so your parking sensors effectively. If you want to add on adaptive cruise control, you can. If you want to add on lane keeping assist, you can. So you should not have any problems in terms of active safety. Now let's return to those competitors. We have the Mercedes-Benz CLA and the Audi A3. Now, if we want to do apples to apples with this M235i, we're talking about the Mercedes-AMG CLA 35, which makes 302 horsepower and starts at $48,000. And then the Audi S3, which starts at $44,000, so a relative bargain compared to the $45,000 starting price for this, and that CLA 35. And that makes 288 horsepower, so much less power than both this and the CLA 35. So they all stack up pretty neatly in the segment, that S3 being the bargain of them, but not quite delivering the stylistic impact of the CLA or this M235i. I do find the S3 to be the most handsome, despite the fact that it's not the most flashy, but the performance, I'm going to give the edge to this M235i. I like the cabin, we've already discussed that, but the performance is really what sells me. And something in this segment you want to really thrill you on a daily basis. The CLA 35 AMG is great, but it doesn't quite have the sharpness in a corner that this M235i does. And the S3 also holds its own just fine, but doesn't quite have the edge to this M235. So among the competitors, it's really a lot is going to depend on your styling preferences. Do you like the way the S3 looks? Do you like the way the CLA looks? I find that the CLA has become much better looking in its second generation. The way this new 2 Series Grand Coupe looks definitely doesn't sell me on that, but everything else about it is really good. So if you can get over the looks, then the 2 Series Grand Coupe is the best driver's car and, in my opinion, has the best interior. But if you're attached to the way the vehicle looks, then it's going to be between the CLA and the Audi A3 S3. So that's my take on BMW's new entry-level model, the 2 Series Grand Coupe. If you want to find out more about this car or its competitors, go ahead and click the link in the description below.